this video, I'll be reading from the work of Miles Mathis in his research article titled, "Looks Like Donald Trump is Jewish." First published June 6, 2016. As usual, this is just my opinion based on private research. Readers have been begging me to do Trump, but I don't think this is what they expected or wanted. Even those who don't like him have been fooled into thinking he is a real person. He is about as real as Dudley Do-Right or Rocky the Flying Squirrel. His genealogy is a total mirage. I'll show you where to look. First, go to his mother at genie.com. She is Mary Ann MacLeod. So they want you to think she is Scottish. Then click on her father, Malcolm MacLeod. Then click on his mother, Anne MacLeod. She is the wife of Alexander MacLeod, so that is her married name. What is her maiden name? Whoops, it is also MacLeod, because her father is also named Alexander MacLeod. So both her father and her husband have the same first and last names? Did she marry her own father? Also, her birth year is given as 1833. Note the 33. Genie also fails to mention what we have to learn from the Daily Mail. The name Trump was originally Drumpf. That can't be right, can it? So let's check the other genealogies. The second listed on a Google search is at about.com, but it has nothing to say about this. It stops just short of the Anne MacLeod problem, but it does tell us something interesting. Both Trump's parents died at Long Island Jewish Medical Center. Wikitree matches Genie. That date of 1833 seems suspicious for a second reason. It is too early. I am 52 and my grandparents were all born between 1900 and 1910. My great-grandparents were born around 1880. Anne MacLeod is supposed to be Trump's great-grandmother. Although Trump looks about 30 years older than me, his listed age is only 17 years older, which takes us back to 1863. So we have a 30-year gap there between his fourth generation and mine. That's certainly possible, spread across 3 couplings, but it is upside down to the trend. People tended to get married and have kids earlier back then, not later. And there were no teen pregnancies in my family, if you are wondering. The ages in my maternal line were 23, 30, and 30, and the second 2 are well above average for the time. Addendum, February 22nd, 2017. A reader also sent in this. Fred C. Trump, who donated the land for the Talmud Torah of the Beach Haven Jewish Center, 723 Avenue. Z discusses the impressive future with the assemblage at last week's groundbreaking. So let's return to Frederick Drumpf, Donald's great-grandfather. 2 of his sisters are listed as Elizabetha Friend and Siblia Schuster. Those are both Jewish surnames. We just saw the name Schuster in my paper on Ingalls, published 2 days ago. I reminded you there that Max Schuster, founder of Simon & Schuster, is now admitted to be Jewish. The Schuster in the Socialism Project with Engels was also shown to be almost certainly Jewish. As for Friend, see Michael Friend, Mosh Arie Friend, Wilhelm Friend, Yoav Friend, Leopold Friend, and too many others to mention. So at least 2 of Trump's great-aunts married Jewish men. This reminds us that his daughter Ivanka married a Jewish man, Jared Kushner. We are told this is an anomaly, but it isn't. What is an anomaly is that Kushner admits he is Jewish. Frederick Drumpf's mother is named Katerina Kober. Not only is that possibly Jewish, but it led to another suspicious scrubbing of genealogy. Her father is given as Johann, but he has no parents. He is the only one in that generation whose parents are unknown. Even his wife's parents are known. I suggest the name isn't Kober, but Kolber. We have seen the genealogies being whitewashed this way again and again. Changing one letter is often the best way to do it. It is the most subtle, so it draws the least attention. Kolber is very often Jewish. With more study, we find that Trump's aunt Elizabeth married William O. Walter. That name is also possibly Jewish. We find a William Walter as Director of Jewish Family Services in Newark, Pennsylvania. Also a William Walter, just buried at Jewish Memorial Chapel of Long Island. Also, a William O. Walter marrying a Cora Newhouser in Lebanon, Pennsylvania in 1924. That name is probably Jewish. And most curiously, a William Walter listed in the Jewish Missionary Intelligence of June 1896. More research discovers his firm were the honorary stockbrokers of this London Jewish Society in 1900. That is interesting because it directly ties to my previous paper on Frederick Engels and Robert Owen. Owen's brother-in-law was James Haldane Stewart, who worked for the Jews Society in the 1830s and 40s, a precursor of this Jewish missionary intelligence. At any rate, this may be our William Walter or his father, given that date. His father is scrubbed at Genie.com. The names Walter and Walters were chosen by Jews entering the U.S. as a new name, as we see from Barbara Walters. Her father, Louis Walters, was originally Louis Abrahams. In later papers on Spotlight and on the Nazis, I found a possible genealogical link between Trump and top Nazis. Wiki and Genie admit Donald Trump is related to the famous Heinz family. Marty Barron, editor of the Boston Globe, is listed at Genie.com as the son of Howard Naphtali Heinz Barron. We aren't told what the Heinz stands for, but it isn't his mother's maiden name since she is a Cohan, probably a variation of Cohen. I guess we are supposed to think it is just his nickname, but how do you get Heinz from Howard or Naphtali? His grandfather is Naphtali Herz Cohen. So I thought maybe he got the Heinz from Herz. Is that possible? Well, there is a Heinz Herz born 1907, famous German historian, so let's study him. He has a wiki page in German. There, his father is given as evangelical pastor Johannes Heinrich Herz, but suspiciously no mother is given. However, they all but admit Heinz was Jewish when they tell us he was denied habilitation during the Nazi era. Why else would he be denied advancement? Are we supposed to think he was a gypsy? Even stranger, they admit he was an NSDAP party member since 1938. What? A party member but denied habilitation during the Nazi era? Could this bio be any more contradictory? I take both facts as indication he was Jewish, for reasons you now understand. If we search for his genealogy, we find nothing, but we do find a Heinz Herz from 1923 in Germany. His mother is listed as in Ahrensburg, which is Jewish. More indication is that he worked in a bank early on, which may have been a family bank. This also reminds us that in German, Heinz is normally a given name, not a surname. But that still hasn't given us any link between the Heinz family and the Herz family. It certainly doesn't indicate Heinz is a variation of Herz. So I appear to have hit a dead end. One of my hunches finally died on the vine, or did it? If we take Henry John Heinz back several generations, we come to Johann George Heinz. He married Anna Henninger, daughter of Nicholas Henninger. This rings a bell because Himmler's paternal great-grandfather was really a Hettinger. His grandmother was the Himmler, which means the names were switched at this point. Himmler should be a Hettinger. Either way, we have Hettingers and Henningers. Could they be the same family? If they are, then I will have linked Trump to Himmler by another route. In fact, they are linked, as we find at these pages for the Oberst family. Those pages are worth studying since we find links to many curious surnames, including Lanza. Remember Adam Lanza, alleged shooter at Sandy Hook? We also find Schicks, Ackermans, Gorings, Hammers, Kaisers, Rudolphs, Zimmermans, Bretschels, Jungs, Barths, Myers, Webers, Vaughns, Brauns, Vogels, Fields, Hoffmans, and Mullers. But the first sign of Henninger we get is when Elizabeth Oberst marries Johann Henninger in 1825 in Unterschwen, Baden. Both are of that town. In 1849, Susanna Oberst marries Jacob Hettinger of, wait for it, Unterschwin, Baden. In 1851, Michael Oberst marries Katharina Henninger again in Unterschwin, Baden. In the 1920s, an Olga Oberst marries an Edward Hettinger. I suspect these are all variants of the same name, but even if they aren't, we have just linked the Henningers and Hettingers through the Obersts. They are from the same town in the same years and are all linked to all these obviously Jewish families. To salt that in, we also get the Gorings and Brauns and Hoffmans. Also the Skicks. Hitler's grandmother was a Schlickengruber, remember? So not only have we just linked Trump to Himmler, we have linked Himmler to Goring, Braun, and Hitler. All these people now look like cousins. Yes, the links I have uncovered are from the 19th century, more than 150 years ago. But historically, that isn't that long ago. My great-grandparents, whom I met in person, were born in the 1880s, and I am in my early 50s. I will be told I have linked some Henningers and Hettingers, but we have no proof they are the same people. But we do. We just found the Henningers in the Oberst genealogy living in Unterschwim, Baden. There, they were related to the Mullers. Well, if we go to Hein's genealogy, we find his Henninger was from Karlstadt. Guess what? Karlstadt is in Baden. Not only that, but it is about 20 miles from Unterschwin. Both are near Heidelberg, one being about 10 miles northwest and one being about 10 miles south. For more, we find Anna Henninger was the wife of Johann Georg Heinz I. His son, Johann Georg Heinz II, was married to Anna Müller. We find the same with Himmler's Hettinger family, which was also from Baden. On Himmler's pages, the Hettingers fail, but we can search on Johann Hettinger for more. At these pages, we find them in Bolfsheim, in those years about 20 miles east of Heidelberg. Like so many other spooks prominent now, Donald Trump was born in 1946. That is one of the primary marker dates, along with 1933 and 1947. Bill Clinton was born in 1946, Hillary in 1947. Who else was born in 1946? David Lynch, Malcolm McLaren, Gene Siskel, Karen Silkwood, Charlotte Rampling, Alan Rickman, Liza Minnelli, Timothy Dalton, thinks James Bond, Tim Curry, John Waters, Candace Bergen, Robert Jarvik, Reggie Jackson, Cher, Robert Reich, Michael Milken, George W. Bush, Sly Stallone, Linda Ronstadt, Keith Moon, Bob Bowman, Barry Gibb, Freddie Mercury, Tommy Lee Jones, Oliver Stone, Andrea Dworkin, Catherine McKinnon, Tim O'Brien, Christine Todd Whitman, Justin Hayward, Susan Sarandon, Susan Summers, Richard Carpenter, Pat Sajak, Robert Mapplethorpe, Graham Parsons, Sally Field, Terrence McKenna, Judy Woodruff, Ted Bundy, Gianna Versace, Patty Duke, Steven Spielberg, Eugene Levi, Robert Urich, Susan Lucci, Jimmy Buffett, Edgar Winter, Marianne Faithfull, Patti Smith, Diane von Furstenberg, and Craig Venture. How many red flags can you count there? I have outed some of those people in previous papers, and others simply out themselves. We might think intelligence had some sort of incubation laboratory in 1946 through 47, where many of these people were raised from the egg to play the parts they later played. One way or another, I believe they did, though I can't tell you a specific scenario. Occam's razor tells me it probably wasn't the more sci-fi scenarios we are sold by some conspiracy theorists, although I don't rule any of those out. My gut tells me they are just products of a planned community, not much more esoteric than the way the Russians used to produce ballerinas. In other words, they are definite signs of a program, but I lean to the low-tech alternatives until I see strong indications otherwise. According to my research so far, these people and most other famous people were culled from the richest families, a majority of them Jewish, and then trained mainly as actors. If they had some talent, great. but as the century wore on, that became pretty much superfluous. They only had to pretend to be musicians or artists or scientists or whatever. Intel found that almost no one could tell the difference. The bios of most of these people are completely manufactured, and they are nothing but actors. They haven't done most of what you are told they have, and if they have money, they didn't get it by earning it. Who died in 1946? William Joyce, alleged Nazi propagandist, but probably related to James Joyce. Both their genealogies are scrubbed and both look like spooks. William's bio simply screams agent. Wilhelm Solchen, German admiral, died 1946. We have seen him recently as the admiral at Kiel during the fake mutiny that ended World War I. Bo Gu, Chinese communist alleged to have died at age 38 in a plane crash. John Maynard Keynes, spook economist. Bruno Tesch, supposedly hanged for invention of Zyklon B. However, Zyklon B was just hydrogen cyanide, which had been invented in the 1700s. Strange that the bosses and owners at IG Farben weren't hanged. Neither were the bosses and owners at DuPont and Standard Oil, who were in a cartel at the time with Farben. As Wiki tells us, quote, of the 24 directors of IG Farben indicted in the so-called IG Farben trial from 1947 to 48, before a U.S. military tribunal at the subsequent Nuremberg trials, 13 were sentenced to prison terms between 1 and 8 years, but most were quickly released and several became senior industry executives in the post-war companies that split off from IG Farben and other companies. End quote. Notice only the admission that all these guys skated, but also the numerology. Tesch wasn't hanged. His death was faked as a trial offering to make it look like something was being done. The same can be said for Ion Antescu, whose bio is, like every other one I have studied, a joke. It would take another long paper to prove that, but notice that when Quadrenew was arrested in 1938, Antescu, almost his right-hand man, resigned in support of him, and it was a celebrity defense witness at both trials. Although we are told Quadrenew was discreetly murdered by the gendarmes, Antescu mysteriously skated, only being reassigned to the Third Army. In 1940, he was put under house arrest but was aided to escape by socialite Alice Sturza. Really? Sturza was an actress connected to Romanian intel. So we have many indications in the early bio that Antescu was not who we were told he was. Within months of his fake escape, he was supposedly installed as prime minister by the Nazis with the consent of Carroll. Which begs the question, why did Carroll have Quadrenew murdered but not Antescu? None of this makes sense. Gertrude Stein also allegedly died in 1946, and I have already outed her in previous papers. Hermann Göring supposedly committed suicide in 1946. Alfred Rosenberg was allegedly executed. Julius Streicher also, and so on. But back to Trump. In his biography, The Art of the Deal, Trump lied about his grandfather's country of origin, stating it was Sweden instead of Germany. So if you think these people wouldn't lie about their ancestry, explain that. Trump was brought up in Jamaica Estates, Queens, which has a large Jewish population. He went to Q Forest School, which was heavily Jewish. Its other notable alumni include Catherine Weber, Jewish, Gideon Yago, Jewish, and Hank Azaria, Jewish. Googling on attended Q Forest brings up mostly Jewish names. Trump's father was on the board of trustees at Q Forest. By the way, it is very expensive. Trump allegedly went to the Wharton School of Business, a famous spook academy. But we have a problem there too. Trump is said to have graduated on time in 1968 at age 21, almost 22. However, since he transferred in year 3 from Fordham University, it is unlikely he would be able to fulfill the degree requirements at Wharton in 2 years. This problem is doubled when we are told Trump worked at E. Trump and Son while at Wharton. It is tripled when we remember Wharton is in Philadelphia and E. Trump and Son is in New York. He avoided the draft allegedly for heel spurs or a lucky high number. Ivana is also Jewish. An early boyfriend was George Syrovatka. That is a Jewish name. Her first husband was Alfred Winkelmeyer. Many websites try to pass him off as an Austrian skier, but Wiki admits he was a real estate agent. Winkelmeyer is a Jewish name. Ivana lied about being an alternate for the Czech Olympic ski team. She went to McGill University in Montreal, a spook academy we have run across many times. Genie.com lists her father's name as both Navs and Zelnicek. I'll give you a hint. Drop the second E. You get Zelnik. It is Yiddish for haberdasher, clothier. It's Jewish too. See Robert Zelnick, Strauss Zelnick, Bob Zelnick, etc. Robert was a fellow at the Hoover Institution, Stanford. Strauss was president of 20th Century Fox. Bob was an ABC News producer. Also, Frederick Zelnick was a silent film producer. Also, David O. Selznick, whose name was originally Zelaznik, or alternately Zelnick. He and his father were major Hollywood producers, David at RKO, which was owned by Joseph Kennedy. Both Trump and his father ran with top Jews in New York, including Samuel Lindenbaum and his father Abraham, and Roy Cohen. These guys weren't just their attorneys, they were their enablers. As the New York Times says in the 2012 obituary of Samuel Lindenbaum, quote, Mr. Lindenbaum cultivated a scholar's knowledge of the zoning resolution, the arcane document that governs development in New York. As a result, he was able to bend the resolution to his client's will without breaking it. And because his clients were major builders and landowners, among them Harry B. Hemsley, Harry McClough, Larry A. Silverstein, Jerry I. Spire, Leonard Litwin, Stephen Roth, and Donald J. Trump, the Fishers and Tishes and Rudins and Roses, end quote. Notice anything about that list? Everyone on it except Trump is admitted to be Jewish. Curious, no? This means that the 3 remaining presidential candidates are all Jewish, but only 2 of them are cryptos. The only question remaining is this: are all 3 gay? And to answer your question, no, that was not a joke. Some will say, I don't care if Trump is Jewish or gay. I plan to vote for Bernie, so I don't care. But these people are missing my point. I have nothing against gays or most Jews. What I don't like is the lying and the faking. I don't like these asinine projects being run against me all the time. I don't like my intelligence insulted day by day. I don't like this manufactured world sold as real. And you shouldn't either. Bernie isn't as ridiculous as Trump, but he is just as fake. He is an actor on the stage they have prepared. The entire election is a big stage play, as fake as a Shakespeare production, but not as well written or acted. The office of the president is now fake, played by a bad actor or the idiot son of some billionaire. He does nothing but read from teleprompters, scripted by guys behind the curtains. Trump is sold to you as some sort of financial genius, but like George Bush before him, the great decider, he couldn't decide what to order for lunch without a cue from a teleprompter or one of his other gadgets. If you can't see through all these people, you really need to check your prescriptions and dosages. And that is the end of Miles Mathis's article on Donald Trump being Jewish. Well, I don't have too much to add here. I did not know that Donald Trump was Jewish, and as far as him being just a part of the play and the intelligence agencies and all this, that's totally possible. This article was written in 2016, so everybody needs to remember that when they're listening to it now, because now it is 2019, and there's a lot. Obviously, the Trump presidency has created a lot of just a lot of public discussion between the radical liberals that are screaming all the time about him, and then of course his supporters, and the guys filling stadiums. I don't know if Donald Trump is just another player on the board, if he's just another actor. He has all the connections to be. I mean, you could really get into Donald Trump and his connections and where he's from, and coming from a Jewish family, Yeah, this is very worrying, because these people have been known throughout history to just use all types of subversive tactics to manipulate the public. So at this point in his presidency, I don't have anything overtly negative to say about Donald Trump. I don't know everything about what he's doing as president. I know that the mainstream media hates him. The thing with Donald Trump is I just don't know. I mean, he is on the brink of busting open the corruption that's been going on in government for many years. So is that part of the play, or is he breaking away from what the norm is, which is to just cover this stuff up, keep lying to the public, give them a handout here and there, and make them feel like they might be being listened to? But it's just, I don't know. I'm a Trump supporter. I love what he's doing overall. If these investigations really come out, these IG investigations and these investigations into the Clinton Foundation and all this stuff, if that actually hits the public, then we're in a world that I'm not sure. Because what's the plan here? If Donald Trump is really an agent of Mossad, Israel, or the intelligence agencies, however you want to put it, if he's really working for them, why is he ripping their organizations to shreds? Why is he going up against the mainstream media so hard? Why is he exposing them so hard? I mean, the mainstream media took a long time to get into place, to the point where most people are very programmed by the media. If they don't see it or read it or recognize that information is coming from a mainstream source, most people are not going to believe it or accept it as reality, even if it is. So why is Trump out there absolutely destroying their way of brainwashing people? Are they setting the stage for something major to go down that's going to ultimately be in the best interest of the rulers and not the people? It's hard to see, because Donald Trump is doing a lot to destroy the brainwashing that's been going on. And I'm not saying that he's replacing it with something much better, or that maybe he's going to replace it with something worse. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. But from my point of view, from everything I know about this and everything I know about Trump, I've read his books, I've studied him a little bit, I've seen some mainstream documentaries on him, which none of it can be reliable, even his books, even Art of the Deal. I don't know if that's reliable, because maybe he didn't write it. Maybe it was written for him. Maybe it was a ghostwriter. I don't know. But if some of the stuff that I know about Trump is true, and I'm adding, his this paper to that knowledge, then I'm suspicious of Trump. I'm suspicious of any ruler. But I cannot say at this point that I don't support what he's doing, because he's bringing down the cabal. I mean, he's actively fighting against the deep state. And unless this is a very intricate deception, it's tough. It's tough to judge, because I don't know what they're getting. I mean, if he takes out the mainstream media and he replaces them with alternative media personalities, like what he did recently with the White House. He invited a bunch of alternative media analysts to the White House and journalists. If he's going to hand the baton over to them, a lot of those guys are doing honest research, like Mark Dice and some of these other people who are also big fans of Donald Trump. And I don't trust everybody 100%, but there are certain people that I have to trust their information and what they're putting out there, like Mark Dice. You know, he does a great job explaining things. He tells you where he's coming from. He does a lot of research, and he's a writer as well. So when I put in all this other information, at this point, I would have to say I still support Trump. I'm wary of him being Jewish, because that's where their ruling elite come from, these powerful Jewish families. So hopefully Trump is out there to do good for the people, and he continues destroying the mainstream media and putting the CIA out in its place and exposing all of this as what it truly is. Now, if he's going to replace it with something worse, or if some huge event, false flag of some sort comes out of this, then alright, you know, he fooled me for a little bit or whatever. But at this point I have to say I like what the guy's doing, and I'm gonna continue to support him. So with that, I will end it there. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.